I think you can remember where we stopped the previous day. We started learning about the simple present tense. Last week we started learning about the simple present tense. I think you can remember. So then I told you where we can simply use the simple present tense. We just use the simple present tense to talk things in general. So again, we discuss regarding these adverbs. These adverbs are profusely used in the simple present tense. These adverbs are very commonly used in the simple present tense. So we talk about them, the placement. We basically use them before the main verb. And again, we talk about the word order. And this is the topic, subtopic that we discussed at last. So we talk about these non-action verbs. I told you that actions, verbs can be categorized into two different areas like action and non-action. So when it comes to these non-action verbs, we cannot generally use them in continuous tenses. But there are certain verbs like think and see. Sometimes these two verbs can be action verbs. Sometimes they can be non-action. Now, when I see you thinking, I would ask, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? When I raise that particular question, I mean, what is going on in your mind? What is going on in your mind? So in that sense, of course, we can use think plus ing. Whenever you mean that something is going on in someone's mind, there we can use think plus ing. Sometimes we use think in the meaning of believing. There actually we cannot use think plus ing. I think this is your book. The verb think means there believe. I believe this is your book. I believe this is your book. So there you don't say, I'm thinking this is your book. Similar kind of things happen even with regard to the verbs see. I'm seeing the doctor tomorrow. There you are talking about meeting. I have already made an appointment. But when you say that I see the calendar on the wall, I see the calendar on the wall. There you don't use C plus ing. Don't use it in continuous tense. I see the screen. Oh, I don't see. And this is also another factor that we have to make clear when using the simple present tense. Subject questions. You know that when it comes to general type of questions, all the time we have to separate either do or does out of the verb. Where do you live? Where does he live? Why do you learn English? Why does he learn English? Likewise, when it comes to interrogatives or questioning, we separate either do, do or does out of the verb. But when it comes to subject questions, we don't usually do it. Who teaches you English? There we inquire the person who is involved in doing the action or performing. When we inquire the performer, the doer, or the subject, we generally do not separate the helping verb out of the verb. We don't raise the question like, who does teach you English? We just ask, who teaches you English? And who comes late every day? There we ask regarding the individual who gets late. When we raise the question in plural term, we mean many more individuals who come late and who pays these people who wants to join us or tell us the time. Clocks and watches tell us the time. So likewise, when it comes to subject questions, we generally do not separate either do or does out of the verb, as we do it with other questions. And listen to your elders' advice, not because they are always right, but because they have more experiences of being wrong. So listen to your elders' advice. Likewise, when giving commands, when asking things, we use the simple present. And not because they are always right. If, am, is, or are, present forms of be, is used to be the main verb, we consider them to be simple present. If, am, is, or are is used to be the main verb in a sentence, those sentences are considered to be simple present. I'm a teacher, simple present. You are a monk, simple present. She is a nurse, simple present. So, such sentences are considered to be simple present. And again, another important factor that we should understand regarding the simple present tense, emphasizing, stressing. Now we can take very simple example here, as you can see on the screen. I understand the lesson. I understand the lesson. When it comes to negative sentences, we have to separate do out of understand and connect negative with that. We don't understand the lesson. I don't understand the lesson. So questioning, do you understand the lesson? And negatively interrogate, don't you understand the lesson? I understand the lesson, the statement. I don't understand the lesson, the negative statement. Do you understand? Don't you understand? Those two are questions. So when you just look at this example, you can see in the second sentence, the helping verb do is separated out of the verb understand. In the second example, we separate the helping verb out of the verb just to make the idea negative. In third and fourth, you can see the helping verb is separated just to make the sentence interrogative, question. So you know that we generally separate the helping verb just to make the idea negative or interrogative. That is where we generally separate either do or does out of the verb. But in the fifth one, I do understand the lesson. When you just look at that example, you can see the helping verb is separated out of the verb. The helping verb is separated out of the verb. But it is not a negative sentence. It is not a question either. There we do emphasizing. There we stress the idea. I do understand the lesson. මට පාඩම නියමයට තේරෙනවා. හොඳටම තේරෙනවා. Likewise, whenever you want to emphasize or stress the idea, you can separate the helping verb do out of the verb. Right? When you say, I do understand the lesson, there you are emphasizing. I understand the lesson very well. By using very well, the same thing can be done. But if you can develop sort of idea simply going for structural changes, you should give priority to that rather than making the idea using foreign words, new words. So I recommend, I do understand the lesson. When emphasizing, we can do it in different ways. But if you can develop the idea, simply going for the changes in the pattern itself, you should give priority to that. කොට අවධාරණය කරන්න අපිට ඒ පැටර්න් එක ස්ට්‍රක්චර් එක ඇතුලෙන් කරන්න පුළුවන් නම් වචන නොදා ඒකට ප්‍රමුඛතාවය දීම වැදගත්. ඒතර එතන අවධාරණයක් වෙන්නේ. So when you say that I do remember it, I do remember, there you emphasize. Somebody would ask you, can you remember it? Do you remember? Yes, why not? I do remember. I do remember. Somebody would ask you a question like, do you believe it? Why not? I do believe it. When you say that I believe it, you just make the idea. You just say that you believe it. But when you say that I do believe it, you emphasize that you do it. Please do taste of it. Please do taste of it. Please do try a bit. Do try a bit. When memorizing words, we tend to memorize, sometimes we tend to memorize words with specific dictionary meaning. So you see that try. Try කිව්වහම අපි උත්සාහ කරනවා කියන තේරුම විතරයි අපි බොහෝ පාඩම් කරන්නේ. But it has different meaning. You can try a bit. Right? Now you see that you have made some sort of special kind of food. And while serving the food, right, you would ask from the visitor or from your friend, you would just say, you can just try it. You can try a bit. It's really tasty. It tastes really good. It tastes really good. It is tasty. You can try a bit. Halabala. So, in a shopping, right, you can say that I am trying on a t-shirt. I am trying on a t-shirt. Try on can andala bala. You just put it on and see whether it fits you. You go to the fitting room. You just wear. You just put it on and see whether it fits you, whether it's okay with you. So you can say, I'm trying on a t-shirt. I'm trying on. That's why I always ask you not to memorize English words with a specific dictionary meaning, because the meaning depends on the context where it is used. The same verb, the same word may give you different meanings in a different setting, in a different background. When you say that he has a bike, but when you separate does out of has and say like he does have a bike, there you emphasize he does have a bike. They do have a van. So we can emphasize without using foreign words, new words, without using separate words, we can do emphasizing simply by separating the helping verb out of the verb. I think you can hear me and you can see the screen, but better if you could kindly ask questions regarding the things which are taught here. Please ask questions. You can unmute your mic and questions.
Excuse me, sir. I'm sorry to disturb you in the morning.
No,
So you have written there, he does have a bicycle.
Yes.
There are two words, singular and plural, in the one sentence.
Yes.
How to?
Yeah. Now,
would you please explain that?
Okay. So question, right? So when talking about possession, whenever you want to say that somebody possesses something, possess kya ne aiti vela. Whenever you want to say that somebody possesses something, or somebody owns something, you can use either has or have. Right? He has a, we'll take a very simple sentence, he has a bike. He has a bike. When you say that he has a bike, you know that you mean that he possesses a bike. He possesses a bike. He owns a bike. Or bicycle. Whenever you want to make the idea negative, you have to understand the helping verb, which is hidden inside the singular verb has. Has equal. Does plus have equal has. Does plus have equal has. In the simple present tense, this is how that particular singular verb gets formed. So when making the idea negative, he has a bike is a positive statement. Whenever you want to turn that into negative, you have to separate does out of has and connect negative with that. Once you separate does out of has, remainder is the base form have. He has a bike, negative. He doesn't have a bike. He hasn't a bike is less usual. It is less usual. We don't tend to use it. He hasn't a bike. We don't say like that when talking about possessions. When using has to be a helping verb, of course, you can say hasn't, haven't. But whenever you use either has to have to be the main verb, you should understand the relevant helping verb, either do or does. They are hidden inside. Having understood that, you need to separate the helping verb out of the verb. That's how you go for making negatives. He doesn't have a bike. Right? Question, does he have a bike? Negative question. Doesn't he have a bike? Right? When you say that he does have a bike, he does have a bike. Right? He has a bike. How bike? He doesn't have a bike. Does he have the doesn't he have nothing? He does have a bike. Sure, and go bike. There you emphasize. You separate does out of has. When you separate the helping verb does out of has, remainder is the base form have. Here has is a helping verb, have is the base form, the verb stem. When you say that he does have a bike, does is not a verb. It's a helping verb. The helping verb is kept separate just to make the, just to emphasize the idea, stress the idea. He does have a bike. He does have a bike. Sure, bike. Otherwise, you have to say, whenever you want to say that, bike, he has a bike. He has a bike. When you say that he does have a bike, you mean that he has a bike for sure. He has a bike for sure. He definitely has a bike. He has got a bike. You can use even has got and have got, but it's a different pattern related to the simple present perfect. We will discuss that when talking about the present perfect. But I am talking all these things in terms of the simple present. Is it clear or do you need another clarification? Yeah.
Okay.
You got the idea? I think one of you asked a question and that's what please respond me. Otherwise, you know that when doing classes on Zoom, of course, your responses really support you. So we use the simple present tense to give instructions or directions. Walk for about 100 meters and then turn to your left. To express fixed arrangements, present, future. Present or future. And you can see when talking about timetables, agendas, or such schedules, we do have to use the simple present tense. We do have to use. We have to use. We do have to use. So if something happens according to a timetable, agenda, or particular schedule, even though they are to begin or occur or take place in the future, we do have to use the simple present tense. This is another context, another setting, another background where we should come up using the simple present tense. Now, you know that understanding the simple present tense is not very much difficult. There you do not find very difficult algebra equation. It's something really simple. But when it comes to the practical usage or the function of the tense, we have to understand the settings, environments, different contexts where we can use that particular pattern. So, whenever you talk about something that happens according to a timetable, an agenda, or such a schedule, the tense that we do have to use is the simple present. What time does the last train leave tomorrow? Leaving of the train is to take place tomorrow, something related to future. But you can see the simple present tense is used. So simple present tense does the work of the future tense in this particular context. Even though you are talking about that is to happen tomorrow, you cannot use the simple future here. What time will the last train leave tomorrow? You cannot raise the question like that using will. You know that just to talk about future, we have the future tenses. We can use either will or shall. But when talking about things happen according to timetables, agendas, even though they are to begin or happen in the future, we generally don't use any of future tenses. We only use the simple present tense. What time does the last train leave tomorrow? It leaves at 11:45 p.m. tomorrow. Now you see that there's a funeral next door. And you are really interested in participating in the rituals related to funeral. So you ask, what time does the cottage leave home? What time does the cottage leave home? So it is to happen in the future, but you just, when raising the question, of course, you use the simple present tense. Because if there's a funeral, they improvise sort of timetable, agenda, so that they can perform related traditional rituals. When does your exam start next month? Right now, I just ask you, when is your exam? When is your exam? Or when does your exam start? You would say, when does your exam start? When does your exam start? About the Vibhagi Patanga. When does your exam start? About the Vibhagi Patanga. You are talking about something related to future. But you don't raise the question like, when will your exam start? You know that the exam is going to happen somewhere next month. It is going to occur or begin or take place in the future. But we are talking about something that is to happen in the future. But you never use, it will be started by next month. That is passive. That now you have text a question, it will be started by next month. So that is simple future passive. When it comes to conversational English, most of the time we don't use passive. We have to understand where we can use passive. And again, the simple future. We generally use the simple future to say the action needs to begin to start in the future. It will start by next month. That's what I am telling you. We don't say it will start by next month. It starts, because if it is an exam, right? If it is an exam, it happens according to a timetable, according to a schedule. If something happens according to timetable schedules, you do have to use the simple present. So, what I was telling earlier regarding passive, we tend to use passive when we are not aware of the subject, or mentioning the subject is not very important. That is where we generally tend to use passive. So we have to understand where we can simply come up using passive. And the future tense. We use the simple future tense just to say the action is to begin in the future. Or you are going to make a decision. So there are two places where we just use simple future in general terms. No, so you have to get the point. When talking about anything that happened in according to a timetable, agenda, schedule, right? We have to use the simple present. What time does your exam start tomorrow or next week or whatever? Now you are aware about you know the date, or you know the day. You want to know the exact time. Then you may ask, what time does your exam start? What time does the program finish? Now you know the starting time. Now you know the time the program starts. But you know the time that it is going to be over. Then you would ask, what time does the program finish? Now see that this is a particular notice received from from a school. The school will close. You have to consider this without two S's, which are mentioned in red color. The school will close without S. The school will close for the year-end vacation on 7th December and will reopen on 5th January. If you make at is not commonly used nowadays. At what time? You can just ask what time. At is using at is not very common nowadays. Earlier we used, but we just raise what time. Right. And the school will close. You see that now you receive this particular message at the end of November regarding vacation that they are going to give in December. So you get the message in advance, earlier. Right? Even though you cannot use the simple future tense here. The school will close, like that. You have to use the simple present, because if it is a school, everything happens according to annual calendar, timetables and all. So when talking about things happen in the school, educational programs and other activities, as they happen according to annual calendar and timetables, we use simple present tense. The school closes for the year-end vacation on 7th December and reopens on 5th January 2000. We can change the date, 2023. So here we cannot use simple future. Now you make this particular note somewhere in November. You are talking something that happened in December and January. But you cannot use, even though the action or this particular thing is to happen in the future, you can never use any of future tenses. You have to use the simple present because you are going to talk something that happened according to timetables, schedules and all. So that is the point. This is a simple code that you can understand. Simple present tense. When I wake up this morning, I ask myself, when I woke up this morning, I asked myself, what is life about it? I find the answer in my room. The fan says be cool. The fan says be cool. The roof says aim high. The window says see the world. The clock says every minute is precious. The mirror says reflect before you act. The calendar says be up to date. The door says push hard for your goals. The floor says kneel down and awaken your spirituality. So this is a simple quotes where you can see the simple present tense is used. So that means using quotes, of course, you can learn things. When you take very long sentences, very long lessons, sometimes you feel boring. I think I need your help by asking questions. And we also use the simple present tense when talking about habits. He drinks tea at breakfast. She only eats fish. They watch television regularly. He takes alcohol every day. He smokes a lot. When talking about habits of individuals, we use simple present. And we use the simple present tense when for repeated actions, events. We catch the bus every morning. Most of the time it rains every afternoon in the hot season. They drive to Kataragam every Sunday. I go jogging every evening. So when talking about sort of repeated actions that we repeat, we use simple present. And when talking about general truths, we use simple present. Water freezes at 0 degrees. The earth revolves around the sun. The mother is Sharmila. Buddhism teaches non-violence. The human body contains 206 bones. Light travels at almost 300 kilometers per second. Likewise, when talking about general truths, we use simple present, not any other tenses. So here also you find a few quotes. And when giving instructions and directions, sometimes we have to give instructions. Sometimes we have to pass on responsibilities, giving instructions. There we have to use simple present tense. Sometimes we have to give directions to find places or find information about projects and all. There we have to go for directions. The tense that involved there is the simple present. Open the packet and pour the content into hot water. You take route number 174, get off at Battaru. Go ahead and take the second turning to your left and fix arrangements. And you can see with future constructions, when making futuristic ideas, she will see you before she leaves. Now you can see before is, now she will see you, simple future. She leaves, simple present. Before is the conjunction here. The conjunction before connects those two sentences together and make one idea. She'll see you before she leaves. She is going to leave in the future. He is going to leave you. He is going to see you in the future. He is leaving in the future. But you can see after certain conjunctions, we have to use simple present with sort of future idea. Before she will leave, you cannot use simple future. Even though her leaving is to happen or take place in the future, you can never use simple future there. You do have to use the simple present with a future meaning. We will give it to her when she arrives. Her arrival is to happen in the future, but we use the simple present because we can use simple present with future meaning after certain conjunctions like before, when, if, because there are certain conjunctions. After those conjunctions, we just use simple present in place of, before also like that. If say before you are leaving. No, we just say before you leave. Before you leave. Because we can make sort of future idea only by using simple future after few conjunctions as you find here. You can discuss with him when he comes here next week. But when you say he comes here next week alone as a separate idea, then it is not correct. He comes here next week. You can't use next week along with simple future. But after conjunction, you get the right. You can discuss with him when he comes here next week. You can never say that when his coming is to happen next week. It is to happen in the future. But you cannot use simple future there. You cannot use either will or shall. You can use simple present tense with sort of future idea, future meaning in constructing sentences of this type. And when using either has to have to be the main verb, we have to understand how they get formed. Does plus have equal has, do plus have equal have. Has have. When using either has to have to be the main verb, we should understand how they get formed. Does plus have equal has. That is how the singular verb gets formed. Do plus have equal have. He has a bath every day. When going for the negative idea, you cannot say that he hasn't a bath every day. Instead, you have to separate does out of has and connect negative with that. Once you separate does out of has, The remainder is the base form have. It doesn't have a bath every day. And you can interrogate a question like, does he have a bath every day? Having does at the beginning. So they have lunch at 12:30. They have lunch at 12:30. Now you are not using have to say that somebody possesses something. You are going to talk about frequent action that somebody gets in on. They have lunch at 12:30. They have lunch at 12:30. When going for negative or when turning the idea into negative, whenever you want to put the idea into negative, they have lunch at 12:30. You cannot say they haven't lunch at 12:30. You have to separate the helping verb do out of have and connect negative with that. Once you separate helping verb do out of have, remainder again is similar. The base form is similar to the verb. They don't have. They have lunch at 12:30. Have is used in the sense of eating. They eat lunch. They eat lunch. We don't say eat, but we can say they have lunch at 12:30. Negative, they don't have. Lunch at 12:30, you mean that they don't eat their lunch at 12:30. What time do you usually have your lunch? What time do you usually have your lunch? So when using either has to have to be the main verb in the simple present tense for making a general type of ideas. This is how changes happen. This is how you can make negatives and interrogatives. Anything that you can ask? Now you see that I ganithe uganana. You can translate these sentences, singular sentences. Right? She teaches maths. My wife gets up early morning every day, wakes up every day. My son goes to school at 6 o'clock.
Sir, excuse me.
Amen.
Sir, can we say the first sentence? She teaches Max, not teachers. Can we say teach? She teaches.
Teach is the plural verb.
Yes.
Right? In simple present tense, there are teach is simple present tense. Is plural verb. We can make it singular by having an es at the end. Teach us. Teach us. Right? So that is how we make it singular. Teach, they teach. He teaches. We can't pronounce teach like that. For easy pronunciation, we use es when the verb ends from ch, double s, s. There we use es. If you don't use, you cannot easily pronounce it. For easy pronunciation, sometimes we add not the s alone, but es.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Teacher, Guruvaraya. Teacher, Guruvaraya. Teachers, Guru, teachers. Is something different. Teachers, singular verb. Teachers, noun in the plural. Yes, somebody asked questions, but I couldn't hear.
Okay, that's what I asked.
Sir? You can try out these sentences. If you can translate these sentences first, then I can, if you make some correct, anyone can volunteer. Anyone can voluntarily offer and translate these ideas. Anyone can voluntarily offer and translate these ideas If you make any mistakes, I can correct. Third one.
Sir,
Yes.
can we use every day my wife get up?
Yeah. So normally the phrase regarding a particular time frame has to be used at the end of sentence when writing. But when it comes to conversational English, of course, you can have it every day at the beginning. No issue there. But when writing, of course, better to have it at the end.
Wife gets up every day morning.
Right.
Every morning.
Fourth one.
Weekend.
Yeah. He comes out
in weekend.
At the weekend, yes. He visits our place. He comes to our place at the weekend. He visits our place at the weekend. So you cannot be restricted to a particular single way of translating or making the idea. You should understand the same idea could be developed in different ways. There can be different ways of making the idea. And fifth one, without telling singular, we can translate. The fifth one.
Helps me a lot.
Yes, correct. She helps me a lot. She helps me a lot. Right? She is really assistive. Sixth one. Sixth one.
It takes an hour to go to Boran.
It takes an hour, yeah. It takes an hour to go to Boran. Seventh. My baby plays here. He drives the bus.
Maybe plays here.
Yeah, he plays here. Number 9.
He gets a good salary.
Yeah, he gets a good salary. Number 10. Number 10.
It costs
a lot
of money.
Number 11. He wears.
He dresses. Yeah, he wears.
Now I can share
a uniform.
Whenever you are free, you can stop the screen and translate these ideas into English. Whenever you are free, while watching the recorded video, you can translate these sentences. When translating, if you have any issue, we can discuss the other day. I'm sharing these slides in, where you find some single sentences, single ideas, and I want you to try them. Plural sentences. All right, I think we can start the other part. I can share those sentences with the group. Right? So, I think whenever you want to do sort of program in the English medium Sunday school or in an international school, right? Most of the time you administer Pansil. So after administering Pansil, you can make a sermon regarding Pansil, 5 precepts. For the purpose, you can find the vocabulary that I'm going to use here. So we are going to talk about 5 precepts. You can go for a Dhamma talk. You can go for a simple preaching regarding 5 precepts. Pansil. 5 precepts are basically considered to be sort of guidelines for an ethical or moral life. To have sort of a disciplined life. But actually now administering Pansil by Buddhist monks has become a ritual. And it is also the 5 precepts can be considered to be sort of a disciplinary code of conduct for lay Buddhist. We start 5 precepts worshipping the Buddha after reciting Namaskar. Namo tassa bhagavato arahatu samma sambuddhassa. All the time, sometimes even before starting a meeting, anything, we also tend to use this, only Namaskar. It can be translated like devotional or worshipping salutation to the Buddha. It is to venerate the Buddha before we start anything. That is actually for sort of veneration to the Buddha. Namo tassa. There we can simply pay homage to the exalted one. By repeating or by reciting Namo tassa bhagavato, we can venerate the worthy one. We can respectfully salute the supremely enlightened Buddha. There you can see the terms that we use to the Buddha, the exalted one, the worthy one, the supreme Buddha, the enlightened one likewise, we use those terms. The Buddhist devotees express their faith through the act of taking refuge. Taking refuge is one of the first steps in declaring or admitting oneself as a Buddhist. Saranayam. Sometimes we translate Tisarana to be 3 gems, 3 jewels, 3 treasures. But this is how. Now we can see a lot of books prescribed for little ones in English medium schools, Sunday schools and all. But actually, children may not get the correct idea simply looking at these translations. So we have to make them understand what these terms really refer to. So you can use this as a simple lesson. The most used recitation in Pali. Recite is the verb, recitation is the noun. Gayane, Sajjayane, when you say something in a rhythmic manner, there you can use the term recitation. Recite is to say something in a rhythmic manner. Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi. I take refuge in Buddha. So this is how that particular term is commonly translated in many of texts that we find today. Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi. I take refuge in Buddha. Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi. The Buddha, the fully enlightened one. The figure of Sakyamuni Gautama Buddha, that is the simple idea that we get, the term Buddha. But it comes from the verb bujjati, understand. So now, when teaching in international schools or Sunday schools, Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi is translated as I take refuge in Buddha. Mama Buddhaṃ saranaya. So that is the general translation. But we have to make them understand what it really means. This is the general translation. But when it comes to the physical, philosophical meaning, Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi means I take refuge, my own understanding. I take my refuge. I take my own understanding to be my own refuge. Buddhaṃ saranam gacchāmi. Once Buddha was asked, who are you? The question was raised by a scholar because he asked, are you a god from heaven? Then Buddha said, no, I am not a god from heaven. Because he looks like really smart compared to other general type of people. Then he raised another question. Are you a Chakravarti who rules over the world? Then he said, no, I'm not Chakravarti either. I'm not such a king. Then are you a Gandharva? Gandharva is a celestial musician, heavenly musician. Then Buddha said, no, I'm not. Then are you a man? I'm not a man either. Then who are you? Buddha said, I'm awareness. I'm pure awareness. I'm Buddha. So we have to understand that idea when using this particular term. Pure understand, just like a mirror. If you hold a mirror, the mirror reflects everything. A little dirt, tiny particles, even a grain of sand. The mirror reflects everything, but nothing remains on the mirror itself. Just like the Buddha, the mind of the Buddha sees everything as they really are, yatha bhuta. But nothing remains. As the Buddha has gone beyond the mind, worldly mind, mundane mind. And Dhammam saranam gacchami. I take refuge in Dhamma. So Dhamma, the teachings explicated or expounded or preached by the Buddha. So Dhamma, the term Dhamma is generally used to mean the teaching by the Buddha. So when we say Dhammam saranam gacchami, it is translated as I take refuge in Dhamma. That is also sometimes we have to explain when teaching little ones. Dhamma has wider meaning. The general term Dhamma. Sometimes we use Dhamma to talk about the content of the mind, to mean what the mind bears. Manasa dharana de. So when it comes to the philosophical meaning of Dhammam saranam gacchami, the content of my own mind taken to be my own refuge. I develop the content of my mind so that I can go beyond the existence, so that I can penetrate Nibbana. And may the Triple Gem bless you. Teruvan Sarane Mata Teren. Here you can raise questions, because now we are discussing all these things in the English medium because there are foreign students. We cannot talk Sinhala here. But we discuss all these things bilingually. We discuss all these things in Sinhala as well. The other class that we conduct on Thursday. But today, Friday class, of course, we try to conduct this class only in the English medium, as there are foreign students. And the other thing, you know, that this is conducted for the intermediate participants of intermediate level. But anyway, if you can raise questions, if you don't make things clear, you can raise questions and try so that you can understand. එතකොට බුද්ධං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි තමන්ගේ ජීවිතේම අවබෝධයේ පිහිට කොට සරණ යනවා කියන එක දාර්ශනික අර්ථය. ධම්මං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි තමන් ධර්මානුකූලව ධර්මයට අනුව දියුණු කරගත්ත මනසේ අන්තර්ගතයේම පිහිට කරගන්නවා. සංඝං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි ඒ විස්තරي තේරෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා ආපු නිසා සිංහලෙන් ටිකක් කියන්නේ. එතකොට මේකට බෝසත් චර්යාවට සාමූහික ක්‍රියාපිළිවෙලකට අනිත් අයටත් මේ විදාදාගෙන බෝසත් චර්යාවට අනුගත වෙනවා. සංඝං සරණං ගච්ඡාමි. But general translation is there. While explaining those, we have to point out the philosophical meaning of these terms so that anyone can argue against these things. නැත්තම් මේවා ගල් තුනක් රත්තරන් තුනක් කියලා අර වැරදි මතු පිට අර්ථය අරගෙන සමහර වෙනත් අය ඒ කියන්නේ බෞද්ධ සංස්කෘතියට අදාළ සම්බන්ධ නැති අය වැරදි විදියට අරගෙන විවේචනය කරනවා. එතකොට නිකන් තාර්කිකව හිතන අයට එහෙම අර්ථයක් මේකේ තියෙන දාර්ශනික අර්ථය පැහැදිලි කරොත් they can't question. බෞද්ධ දර්ශනයට අනුව අපිට පිළිමයක් ගස්ගල් සරණ යන්න බෑ. බහුවේ සරණං යන්ති පබ්බතානි වනානිච කියන ක්‍රමයට අනුව. ආරාම රූප චේත්‍යානි මනුස්සා බයතජිත. ඒකට වයිම් බීතියෙන් තැතිගත් අය සරණ යනවා කියන එකද මේ කරන්න කිය. Likewise, sort of philosophy, logical question can be raised if you just go for general translation of these terms. So we have to point out the philosophical meaning, idea, especially when teaching to Sunday schools. So this is the general meaning, but this is what we actually want to make the way that we want to guide them. And Sangha Saranam Gacchami, I take refuge in Sangha. The Sangha are the monastic order of Buddhism that practices and preserves the Dhamma. The Buddha, the exemplar, the Dhamma, the teachings, the Sangha, the community of practitioner, the order. So, when talking about these simple things, because you know that every day we recite these things, you administer Pansil to lay people, and we all together recite these things, Namo Tassa, Buddhaṃ Saraṇaṃ, these things. So we have to point out the philosophical and general meaning of these daily rituals. And thereafter we administer Pansil. First one, Pāṇātipātā Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyāmi. I undertake the training precept or the disciplinary rule to abstain from onslaught on sentient beings.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Instead of administer, we can't observe.
Observe, we observe, you administer.
Okay.
Being Buddhist monks, you administer Pansil, right? Once you admit, we re-recite. Thereafter, we have to observe. Observing done by the practitioner who undertakes. The administering part done by Buddhist monks, they are higher than, in virtues, they are more higher than laymen. So I'm going to give you all the translations so that you can get the related vocabulary. Pāṇātipātā, I undertake, I accept to follow this rule. I admit to follow this. The first precepts consist of a prohibition of killing both humans and all beings, all animals. And Adinna Dana Veramani Sikkhapadam Samadhiyāmi, I undertake the training precept, the disciplinary rule to abstain from taking what is not given, not to take others' belongings. The second precept prohibits theft and related activities such as fraud and forgery. The third precept refers to sexual misconduct. It has wide meaning, but general terms. Kāmesu viccācārā veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyāmi, I undertake the training precept. I undertake the disciplinary rule to abstain from sexual misconduct, sexual misbehavior. The fourth precept involves falsehood spoken or committed by action, as well as malicious speech, harsh speech, and gossip. Musavada Veramani Sikkhapada Samadhiyami, I undertake the disciplinary precept to abstain from false speech. So sometimes you can make this a lesson in Sunday school or in an international school. Now you see that you are asked to make a sermon in an international school. There you can administer counsel. After administering counsel, you can start this discussion regarding observing sila. See, because we have to start from sila, then samadhi, then panya. Sila, virtual for moral life, developing moral life, virtual type of life, and samadhi, concentration. Panya, wisdom. The fifth precept prohibits intoxication through alcohol, drugs, such substances, or other means. Even smoking is also included here. Avoid all that cause harm to self, others, and both. Attabhyadayapi sangvatteya, parabhyadayapi, ubhyabhyadaye කියන විදියට we have to filter all the actions that we are going to perform. Because if you do something wrong, if you do something bad, the negative consequences, the negative impacts bounce upon us. What you sow, you will reap. Yadisang vapate bijan tadisang hardepa. What you sow, you will reap. Every action has sort of reaction. If you do whatever action, whatever performance it may be, everything bounces back upon the self who does it. Suramere Majapama. Yes.
In this fifth sentence, there are some drugs we take as what we call that medication.
Yeah, but it's a common term we can use for medicines as well as harmful drugs. In English, we use for both. We use drugs for medications, medicines, as well as harmful substances. That's why we can discuss. We have to explain these things. I use many more terms which are used in translating these ideas into English so that you can improve your vocabulary related. Suramire Majapama Dattana Veramani Sikkhapada Samadhiyami, I undertake to abstain from alcoholic drink or drugs that are an opportunity for heedlessness, carelessness. So, if somebody is used to taking drugs, of course, we cannot say that he can develop mindfulness. He can develop concentration. So there can be sort of mental disorders when somebody gets used to taking these narcotic substances.
So, excuse me.
Yeah.
So, can we use intoxicating drinks and drugs? Is it correct or wrong or suitable?
Yeah, intoxicating or intoxicant. Yeah, even you know that a term ended from ing can be used to be an adjective. Preaching hall, playing area. So intoxicant can be used to be the original adjective. Even along with ing can be made it an adjective. Correct. There. Being lay Buddhist followers, we often undertake 5 precepts in almost every function or ceremony as they take the refugees. Monks administer 5 precepts. Amguru Pansil Deno administer. We undertake to observe. We undertake 5 precepts to observe, being laymen. Monks administer the 5 precepts to the lay people, which creates an additional psychological effect. Now, when administering 5 precepts done by a monk, of course, it gives sort of psychological effect rather than doing it by a layman. Then he did not already put Adhyatmik Hadyak Magapenimatira because spiritually and virtually monks are higher than laymen. And Bhikshunahasanamak, Buddhahamguru Anugamane Karana, Buddhahamguru Pratinirmane Karana, Swaminahasanamak, give Apita Vadiya Idirin in the Nisa Adhyatmiko Saha Padachara me Sila Patipadari. The Kota then Shvidyale in the Kotat, strike Karala Kotat, a Pariduana Kotat, Buddhahamguru Niojane Karuna Kenika Matakno, Tamaya Pe Tarunhamguru Buddha. බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ නියෝජනය වැඩ කරන වැඩක් තමයි මගේ මූලික දේ කියන්නේ. එතකොට අපේ සමස්ත ශාසනයට මේක උදව්වක් වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම සයන්වංශ the 5 precepts are translated in different ways. Now you can see them. Refrain from killing, avoid or abstain from killing, killing living beings, taking life in any form. So this is how the first one, Panadipata, is translated. Refrain, I use all the terms so that you can improve your related vocabulary. Refrain, avoid or abstain from stealing. Refrain from theft. Valakina. Refrain, avoid, abstain. Refrain, avoid, abstain from misuse. That may විදිහට අවශ්‍ය නැහැ මම මේ මෙහෙම use කරන්නේ මෙහෙම ඔක්කොම වචන ටික එකතැන දාන්නේ. But I use all these things for your information and understanding. Refrain, avoid or abstain from misusing sex, sexual misconduct, misuse of senses. Refrain, avoid or abstain from engaging in false speech, speaking lies, falsehood, cheating. Refrain, avoid or abstain from indulging in intoxicants. Intoxicants, it can be made now intoxicants, madrav. That cloud the mind. Manasa out karana, cloud the mind. And clouds kiwa walagulu na mitanarte, we have to use it as a term here.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
In third precept, instead of this sexual misconduct, we can use this celibacy or uncelibacy.
Yeah, now you know that you are not enrolled in celibacy. That is also a term that we can use. Yeah, that is correct there. Celibacy can be used. But very formal. Very formal. We have to refrain, avoid, abstain from indulging in taking intoxicants, using intoxicants, because that cloud the mind, confuse the mind. Dangerous drugs, alcoholic drinks, harmful narcotics, smoking, cigarettes, cigars, everything included here. So you can see that it is translated in different ways. And here I am going to point out that all three aspects of 5 precepts. Now precepts. Initially translated, first one, abstain from killing living beings, sentient beings. So that is the general translation, basic idea. We have to avoid taking life of another. When the spiritual and when it comes to spiritual and philosophical meaning of the first precept, Panatipata, we should understand we promote kindness and compassion. That is what accompanying virtues for a spiritual foundation. By adhering or observing the first one, Panatipata, abstention from killing. Second one, abstention from theft. Right? That is a good habit, because you know that everyone, just to live a normal life, we need our personal belongings. We have to keep them secure. By observing the second precept, you respect that. And the other thing, spiritually, the second one helps to develop generosity and renunciation. දානය අභිනිෂ්ක්‍රමණයට අවශ්‍ය බේස් එක මූල බීජය එතන වැටෙනවා. Second. You don't take, but you tend to renunciate for generously offer things. And thirdly, we have to understand, first one, right to life. To talk about in terms of human rights. The first one, by observing the first precept, you admit the right to live, the right to life. It's a human right. That means, so promoting human rights, naturally done. So nobody can teach us about human rights, because the base of our culture is 5 precepts, and there we can understand by observing the first one, we admit, we accept the right to life.
So excuse me, when you order your bike, there's a big noise.
Sorry, again?
On the bike, there is a big noise. They can't hear clearly.
Please keep your mic muted if you are not asking questions. Abstain from theft, generosity, renunciation, and right of property. You know that second one, everyone needs to have their personal belongings for the personal use. So we have to admit that right. Admitting that right generally happens when somebody observes the second one. And abstention from sexual misconduct, that is the precept, and the spiritual background, contentment and respect for faithfulness. That kind of attitude, spiritual attitude, developed underneath. And when it comes to human rights, you respect the family, the smallest unit of society. The communities or societies are developed with the smallest units of families. So we have to admit the peaceful, harmonious existence of the family. And the fourth one, abstention from speaking lies, falsehood. So there we develop ujuja sujuja. There we develop sort of base, spiritual base, being honest. Ujuja sujuja. Independent. And when it comes to human rights, we admit the dignity of humankind. And the fifth one, abstention from intoxication. There, it supports for the development of mindfulness, which is the key factor for spiritual development. And when it comes to the human rights, the security and safety is provided. So we have to understand all these 5 precepts in different perspectives so that we can emphasize the true value of those teachings, the fundamental teachings, the base, cultural base of our society. Yeah, now it is high time that we wind up the session. Anything that we have to further discuss?